Chapter 51. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Een. Amid the high-pitched chirping, the 8 peregrine falcons and even the white cranes all spread their wings. Immediately afterwards, without waiting for the other mutated creatures to react, they all turned into streams of light and ran in one direction, and here and there happens to be a very good mutant bee colony, as Yu Ziyu's eyes and ears. Peregrine falcon and white crane have already mastered the location of 80% of the mutated creatures in the Misty Mountains. Now, with Yu Ziyu's instructions, they can naturally snipe the target very quickly. What is worth mentioning here is that the foggy mountains at this time are no longer what they used to be. As a mountain shrouded in mist, the concentration of spiritual power here is very good, which has given rise to a large number of plants containing spiritual energy. And because these existences contain a large amount of spiritual energy and can be called spiritual flowers, spiritual grass and spiritual fruits, they have attracted a lot of herbivores, and even carnivores. Of course, more carnivores come to the Misty Mountains as hunters to look for food. In this way, the entire Misty Mountain turned into a sea of mutated creatures. Almost every mountaintop is more or less inhabited by some mutated beasts. In the past, Yu Ziyu, who had planned to slowly conquer or harvest, also put some caution after noticing the trend of humans discovering the spirit stone mine. More important than the future is now, the hunt will eventually begin. Faced with the pressure brought by humans, Yu Ziyu also deliberately accelerated the progress of harvesting evolutionary points. Of course, this kind of pressure can only be said to be a little bit. According to Yu Ziyu's speculation, in a short period of time, a few will only be 3 to 5 years, and this period of time should be enough for Yu Ziyu to grow to a peak. As for other mutated creatures, they are out of Yu Ziyu's consideration, but at this moment, as if he noticed something, Yu Ziyu's eyes suddenly reached the horizon. What comes into view is the black curtain that covers the sky, densely packed and seemingly endless of bees, and they are not just ordinary bees. You can tell everything just by looking at the sharp stingers and fierce eyes. These guys are really ruthless. Looking at the peregrine falcons flying towards the canyon with a black beehive several meters high, Yu Ziyu couldn't help but sigh. He just asked these little guys to attract the bee swarm, but he didn't expect that. These guys were so ruthless that they brought all the beehives here. No wonder, these mutant bees are chasing them like crazy. Groan. Looking at the familiar canyon not far away, the leader of the peregrine falcons, Ada, suddenly let out a cry of surprise, then spread his wings and quickly rushed over, dragging a corner of the hive. But at this moment, the hive several meters high suddenly shook, and from the dark holes, black and very ferocious heads popped out. Without any words, the eyes of these guys, whose auras were obviously much stronger than those of the other bees, flashed red. Immediately afterwards, each one turned into an arrow and pointed directly at the peregrine falcon. It buzzed like thunder. The sharp sting stung the peregrine falcon hard. However, perhaps the bee sting came so fast that Ada, who was carrying a corner of the hive, had no time to dodge, just heard a bang sound. It was like the collision of metal, bringing out a burst of sparks, and Ada was already shooting towards the earth like a cannonball. Bang! The snow was splashed with flying snow, and a bottomless hole was exposed. This outbreak got a rare silence, and Yu Ziyu was also a little surprised. A bee that was only at the 4th level was able to blast Ada to the ground. It has to be said that these bees are still quite powerful. But is this really good? His face was weird, and so was Yu Ziyu. He was so keen that a violent spiritual power slowly rose up. Boom! The flying snow danced wildly, and the cold wind howled. For a moment, the entire land was shrouded in a murderous intention that was so cold that it trembled to the bones. Beasts are still beasts after all. Even if they are raised by Yu Ziyu, their instincts, the violent blood flowing in it, will not be wiped out, and as the top bird of the food chain, the peregrine falcon is even more so. Groan. The high-pitched roar tore through the wind and snow. Immediately afterwards, stab! A black lightning flashed out from the hole in the earth. It was so fast that it was as fast as lightning. In just a moment of trance, Ada was already in front of the large bee pouring out of the hole in the hive. However, before the bee could react, the black and sharp beak easily tore the bee's body apart. Jab, pull. There was a crisp tearing sound like the cracking brocade, bringing out the sky full of blood. Facing Ada, who had now reached the 7th level, not to mention that this bee was only at the 4th level. Even if it was the same level, it didn't matter. The terrifying speed that can easily break through the speed of sound is enough to make Ada and other falcons ignore most of their peers. Groan. There was another high-pitched sound that pierced the gold and cracked stone, as if he was excited. The spiritual power flowing on Ada's wings directly caused a powerful cyclone in the air near it, but with the help of the cyclone generated, Ada suddenly turned back, really like a black lightning, streaking outwards until another bee goes away. But at this time, Yu Ziyu, who was watching this scene quietly, rarely took action immediately. Mutated beasts are extremely tenacious. Even if their bodies are torn apart, they will not die immediately. It is not too late to harvest points with branches after this battle is over. Not long after, the battle finally came to an end amidst the bloody snow that filled the sky. Looking at the whining bees like raindrops falling or already lying on the ground, Yu Ziyu's black tree roots spread silently from the depths of the earth. Boom, boom, boom. As the snow shook, bees were drawn into the earth one by one. Immediately afterwards, Yu Ziyu's tree roots gently exerted force. Click, click. Accompanied by a very clear sound, each bee was crushed into blood-colored flesh without even screaming. At the same time, crisp system prompts sounded in Yu Ziyu's ears. Ding, you killed a 4th level mutant bee, evolution points plus 40. Ding, you killed a 4th level mutant bee, evolution points plus 40. Ding, you killed a level 1 mutant bee, and your evolution points plus 10. P.S. Please collect and reward. After reading the comments, Crimson didn't deliberately increase the difficulty. The scary thing about human beings is learning and thinking. They can always find various ways to promote their own growth. Crimson has read many books on spiritual energy recovery, and will have reasonable explanations for the various rises of human beings in spiritual energy recovery. Of course, the protagonist's growth will not be slow either. Scarlet just put some pressure on the protagonist to grow up as quickly as possible. Reading books on May Day is a joy. Recharge 100 and get 500 VIP points. Grab a deposit now. Activity time, April 29th to May 3rd. Chapter 52. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The evolution point of 782 is worthy of my raising you to this day. Looking at the 782 evolution points that had just been harvested by bees, Yu Ziyu couldn't help but laugh. After raising it for 4 months, he didn't hunt it immediately. In exchange for the 782 evolution points that he now has in one breath, the deal is very worthwhile. Of course, not only that, the corpses of these mutated bees were also turned into bloody flesh by the strangulation of his tree roots. Now, if you look at the tree roots he buried underground, you will definitely find that they are like man-eating tree roots. Shrinking, as if swallowing something. Trees can use animals and plants as their own nutrients. As a demon tree, no, it should be said to be a tree demon, Yu Ziyu is even more able to do this. First, use evolution points to strengthen several roots, and strive to push yourself to the peak of the extraordinary 1st level. Thinking like this, Yu Ziyu also turned his attention to the attribute panel. Good guy. Strengthening a mutated tree root actually requires 100 evolution points. However, after a moment, he looked at the 9 major tree roots. All the roots are long, up to several hundred meters, and then looking at the countless tentacle-like fibrous roots above the branches of the tree, Yu Ziyu was silent for a moment. Based on this volume, 100 evolution points seemed to be too little. Darling, with the help of the main tree roots absorbing the underground spiritual river, the growth rate of these tree roots is really beyond imagination. I had not noticed it before, but now I paid special attention, and Yu Ziyu was shocked to find that the power of the tree roots seemed to be far beyond his imagination. Just this tree root looks like a wooden dragon dormant on the earth. It is estimated that it can have fun with the mutant creatures of the 1st level of the extraordinary. Cough. After coughing dryly, Yu Ziyu came back to her senses. What if the already powerful tree roots are strengthened again? That picture. Thinking of this, Yu Ziyu could no longer restrain her excitement. Spend 100 evolution points to strengthen the branch root. After he finished speaking, before Yu Ziyu could react, he felt a stream of heat suddenly rise somewhere in his body, very hot, like scalding boiling water, spreading wantonly. In just a moment, Yu Ziyu felt that a branch of his tree root was like a fire, terribly hot. But at this moment, the heat surged again, flowing along countless roots. Click, click, click. One after another, like the sound of firecrackers, they exploded deep in the earth. Following Yu Ziyu's gaze, it was clear that the bark of the tree's roots exploded and regenerated into a tougher bark. However, the real change has just begun. Boom, boom, boom. The snow shook slightly, and, what's even more frightening is that there is a direction. Crack, then it was as if the earth was cracking, revealing a long crack, and in the crack, there was a very thick black tree root, like a wooden dragon, spreading further in the direction. It's really scary. After taking a deep look at the crack spreading into the distance, Yu Ziyu couldn't help but sigh. If this power of tearing the earth was used against the enemy, it would be enough to strangle the enemy's steel-like body in an instant. Thinking of this, Yu Ziyu also smiled. However, it was a smile, but the business should not be forgotten. Through the branching tree roots spreading into the distance, Yu Ziyu could clearly feel that the entire mountain was trembling, beasts were galloping and birds spread their wings. Although the spiritual power was hidden, the earth's mutation still makes these animals can't help but fear. However, no matter how fast you run, are you as fast as my tree roots? As if sarcastically, Yu Ziyu also sneered. Then, a thought came to his mind. Swish, swish, swish. Along with the sound of breaking through the air, countless roots shot out from the black tree roots spreading into the distance. These roots are very fast, and they are already entangled in the fleeing animals in almost an instant. Even the birds that are still spreading their wings in the sky and seem to be watching are also entangled in an instant. Strangled. Whispering in his heart, Yu Ziyu also exerted his strength again. Click. With the crisp sound of bone cracking, the neck of a mutated wild boar was strangled. However, before it fell to the ground, roots poured out of the ground one after another. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of slender roots were already there. Its body held it, yes, held it. Then, with a twist, the mutated wild boar was wrapped by countless roots into a black rice dumpling. However, this was not the end, because something more terrifying happened. With a click, the earth collapsed, and the black rice dumpling was dragged into the earth by countless roots. Then the earth surged again, but it filled it up. At this time, his eyes were drawn to that corner. You will definitely be horrified to find that except for some blood stains remaining on the snow, it is as if nothing happened, and this is just a corner. Looking up, among the whales one after another, each mutated beast is killed by the earth. Swallow, for a moment, half of the forest was like a purgatory on earth. Fortunately, Yu Ziyu's tree roots did not spread too far, otherwise there would probably be more than hundreds of such deaths. Ding, you killed a mutated wild boar that entered level 2, and your evolution points plus 20. Ding, you killed a third-level mutated python, and your evolution points plus 30. There were clear system prompts, but Yu Ziyu didn't look happy. This harvest only happens once. It is estimated that in a short time, with it as the center, there will be no mutant beasts within a radius of 1 or 2 kilometers. After all, although these mutated beasts are not very intelligent, they are not fools. Such a doomsday scene and the strong smell of blood that cannot be resolved are enough to make many mutated beasts choose to stop. P.S. Please collect and reward. That I can't help it, I can't help it, I just want to add more. Hey, remember to support me a lot and save a lot of articles. It will be available on the shelves on Saturday, so please don't worry. Chapter 59. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Really? There was some silence. Although Yu Ziyu was confident in the perception of the thick fog, he was not so arrogant that he had everything under control. Thinking of this, Yu Ziyu suddenly smiled and said, "Putting it this way, I should be even more happy. Not to mention that Brother Flathead may have discovered the Spirit Stone Mine. Just discovering such a terrifying mutated beast lurking in my territory is extremely gratifying." Looking at Yu Ziyu, who suddenly turned from gloomy to sunny, Qing'er also breathed a sigh of relief. Based on her understanding of the master, she naturally understood that the master was not angry because the flat-headed brother was injured. A flat-headed brother is not worthy. The real reason for anger is, or is it because things are beyond the master's control? I was already living a somewhat frustrated life because of the threat from humans. I finally managed to accumulate strong strength deep in the mountains, and I was facing a breakthrough again, but at this critical juncture, something like this happened. It would be strange for the master not to be angry. With this thought in mind, Qing'er also touched his chest and thought to himself, fortunately, this didn't happen during the breakthrough. Otherwise, if it had disturbed the master's breakthrough, he would probably have wiped out the mountain with blood. In the early morning, the winter sunshine is pure and pleasant, wisps passing through the gaps in the thick fog, and the broken shadows scattered all over the ground are colorful. At this time, Brother Ping Tu, who was lying quietly in the center of Shaoling Lake, also woke up leisurely. Squeak. With a touch of weakness, Brother Flathead's scream was very sharp, as if he was furious. Then, after shaking his head, the flat-headed brother was shocked to find that it actually appeared in a familiar place. Lakes, canyons, and a big willow tree. Slowly raising his head, what he saw was the gaze of one mutant beast after another on the shore. The giant cyan wolf watched quietly, while the black bison shook its head, and in the distance, there is a fox that looks like it is bathed in flames, lying on a boulder and combing its hair, but the gaze that came over at that moment made Brother Flathead take the initiative to look away. What happened? A cold voice suddenly surged in its heart. Squeak. There was another sharp neigh, and the flat-headed brother seemed to be telling something, and a pair of sharp claws couldn't stop cutting through the air. Especially the grinning look made people tremble. It seemed like there was some great hatred. For a moment, as if he realized something, Qing'er also let out a long breath. For someone like her who has awakened her spiritual talent, verbal communication is already pale. As long as she wants to, she can use her spirit to understand the voices of animals and even plants. Of course, she would definitely not be able to immediately understand the existence that was hostile to her. After all, there was a mental barrier, but it is not difficult for her to gain insight into the thoughts of these mutated beasts that she has been with for a long time. The owner, Brother Flathead, said that he saw a luminous mountain, and there was also a very huge python guarding it. Listening to Qing'er's voice, Yu Ziyu nodded and said bluntly, "In this way, the spirit stone mine does exist." As he said that, Yu Ziyu couldn't help but sneered. There is also a python, hum. In the cold snort, the murderous intention was undisguised. Weak mutated beasts are still worth cultivating, but this has become a mutated beast of the climate, and it is not that difficult to subdue it, and now Yu Ziyu has no interest in subduing a huge python. Then now. Before Qing'er finished speaking, the flat-headed brother lying in the center of Linghu Lake turned over impatiently, then sniffed with his nose, found a direction, and rushed straight away. Forehead. After a moment of silence, Qing'er gained another understanding of Brother Flathead's grudge. It is never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. However, this guy couldn't wait even one night. Follow it and it will lead you where you need to go. Said, Yu Ziyu also added, Qing'er, you should know how to do it, right? Of course I understand. Nodding, Qing'er also responded, if the mutated beast is strong, lead it to the area covered by the roots of the master's tree. If that mutated beast had average strength, then. He gently raised his white arm and clenched it slightly. The almost substantial spiritual power instantly turned into a huge force. Click, click. Accompanied by a very crisp sound, a small stone not far away turned into powder and slowly dissipated in the air. As long as you know. Smiling, Yu Ziyu is also relieved about Qing'er. This girl has been with humans for so long, but she is smart and won't suffer much. As for whether the mutated beast will be beyond the range of what he can handle, Yu Ziyu had already guessed. With one move, even the flat-headed brother was not killed in seconds. This kind of strength, even if it is strong, is not ridiculously strong. The first level of extraordinary is already the limit, but at the first level of extraordinary, let the ferocious flame surge into the sky. In front of Yu Ziyu, I have to lie down. This is not arrogance, but now that the peak of spiritual power has reached a limit, and in all aspects it is a kind of confidence that one has reached the peak of the extraordinary first level. If she didn't even have this little bit of self-confidence, Yu Ziyu would have ruined Golden Finger. You know, because of the existence of Golden Finger, his power far exceeds the level of extraordinary first level. The most obvious example is his L2 level abilities, which are not something ordinary first level extraordinary creatures can master. The thick fog alone is enough to cover hundreds of mountains. How can this kind of ability be possessed by a first level extraordinary person? In other words, Yu Ziyu can already be called invincible at the same level. At this time, Yu Ziyu looked towards the direction where Brother Ping Tu left, even with a hint of expectation. I hope you don't disappoint me. Amid the murmur, Yu Ziyu buried one after another thick tree roots like wooden dragons in the depths of the earth, and they have spread silently in the direction where Brother Ping Tu left. P.S. Please give me flowers and collect them --. It will be released at 12 o'clock in the evening. I hope you can support it. Chapter 60. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The white mist filled the mountains, sometimes transforming into ferocious beasts, craning their necks in one direction and roaring, which seemed to reflect Yu Ziyu's heart at the moment, excited, hot, and with a hint of killing intent quietly hidden deep in the mist, and at this moment, on the slope of a mountain range. Squeak. Amid the excited shouts, a 2 to 3 meter tall boy with a flat head stopped and was running around anxiously on the hillside. Is it here? With a murmur, Qing'er, who was dressed in red makeup, also turned into a wisp of cold wind and floated over. She is a wisp of soul. Now she has entered the 9th level. Although her body is solid, she can easily switch between reality and reality. In reality, it is like a wisp of cold wind, invisible and piercingly cold. In reality, mental power interferes with reality, and the power reaches its peak. Squeak. There was another series of excited shouts, and the flat-headed brother had dug his claws deep into the ground and began to dig up the ground. However, at this moment, Qing'er glanced at Brother Flathead lightly, then slowly turned around. Ouch, ouch, ouch. With low whimpering sounds, 4 giant cyan wolves slowly walked out of the mist behind them. At the same time, a swaying black bison also came leisurely, and that's not all. High in the sky, peregrine falcons spread their wings and white cranes sang low. In the distance, there is a giant red fox bathed in flames, lying on a big tree, looking coldly at the entire mountain range, as if on guard. Kyubi, bull demon, you search this mountain range to see if there are ravines or cave entrances. After taking a look at the red fox and bison, Qing'er also ordered immediately. Without words, the 9-tailed and the bull demon had quietly disappeared into the white mist. Compared with other mutant beasts, Momo was the most powerful. 2 9-tailed and bull demon, one has entered the 8th level, while the other, a very ordinary black bison, has quietly entered the 7th level. With his strong talent, his combat power is real not weak. As for the other mutated beasts, I'm very sorry, their strength is really not up to the mark. It's better to stay here quietly and cooperate with Brother Flathead's search. After all, this time is of great importance and there is no room for mistakes. At this time, through the perception of the mist, Yu Ziyu also clearly noticed that Qing'er and others had stopped. Is it here? While muttering, Yu Ziyu also subconsciously stirred up the thick fog. Boom! As if the wind was blowing, the white mist rotated rapidly above Qing'er and others, and in a blink of an eye, a large vortex was drawn out. Then, without waiting for ordinary people to react, this mist vortex was oppressed by something else, suddenly fell vertically to the ground. Boom! There was a loud noise, and all the white mist hit. In a moment it turned into a circle of fog waves and surged in all directions, and with the spreading mist, Yu Ziyu had countless pairs of eyes, searching every detail of this mountain. Corner. It doesn't take long for Yu Ziyu to wait until the mist spreads into the cracks in the rocks, and Yu Ziyu can easily capture the possible entrance. However, although Yu Ziyu's search method is terrifying, it cannot last long. More importantly, these mist cannot penetrate into the depths of the mountains. The mist is rootless after all. Even with Yu Ziyu's mental control, he cannot flexibly guide the mist into the depths of the earth. Otherwise, Yu Ziyu will not use rotation to. Further, he slapped the vortex to the earth to guide the mist to spread in all directions. He had more heart than strength. It can only be said that the current Yu Ziyu is not strong enough to span dozens of kilometers and accurately control the mist. If it were in his Grand Canyon, it would be better, somewhat possible. Not long after that, Yu Ziyu was suddenly shocked. Looking from his perspective, he suddenly discovered that there was a bottomless hole behind a spring in this mountain range. The gurgling water seeped into this hole and then disappeared without a trace. This, with a suspicious look on his face, Yu Ziyu was also a little unsure about his perception from too far away. However, at this moment, step, step. Accompanied by crisp footsteps, a calf-sized fire fox was quietly pulled out from a corner. Just in time. Smiling, Yu Ziyu also used the mist to convey his meaning. Boom! The hazy mist shook slightly, and then slowly dissipated, revealing a mountain spring hidden deep in the mountains. Roar! With a long roar, Jiuwei, who had always been smart, naturally understood what his master Yu Ziyu meant. It is not unfamiliar to Yu Ziyu's mist. In Beiyu Canyon, Yu Ziyu used the fog to play tricks on it. Step, step. Lifting his legs, Kyubi slowly walked towards the mountain spring. However, at this moment, if one pays attention to Kyubi's movements, one will definitely find that this guy's body has become tense, and even his gorgeous eyes have a hint of vigilance. After a while, when they arrived near the mountain spring, Jiuwei stamped his steps and lingered for a while. It slowly pulled its gaze towards the mountain spring, until it saw the entrance of a cave, and its eyes narrowed slightly. The hole is not big, and it's not so much a hole as it is a crack, dark and damp, covered with moss. However, at this time, Jiuwei lowered his head and sniffed the crack with his nose, but was suddenly shocked. Then, as if he noticed something, his red hair suddenly stood up, like flying flames. At the same time, a terrifying spiritual energy fluctuation slowly surged in the air. And just then, call. A wisp of cold wind floats in. Found it. Qing'er, who was dressed in red makeup, looked at Jiuwei, who looked very wary, and nodded slightly. Immediately, he was pulled to the mountain spring. At this time, as if he had discovered something, Qing'er suddenly leaned down. He lowered his body and picked up a strand of moss. Looking carefully, this strand of moss was actually stained with something that looked like scales. Snake, scale. Pursing her lips and smiling softly, the girl held back her hand and grasped the scales in her hand. Go inform them and leave quickly. As soon as he finished speaking, Qing'er's figure suddenly turned into a wisp of red smoke and rushed towards the crack. P.S. Please give me flowers and collect them. It's on the shelves. Thank you for your first order. Thank you very much. Hehe. ******* Faloo reminds you, 3 things about reading, collection.